Welcome to the channel. Welcome to Micro Rigs RC. Today we're going to talk about a new build that I have. This is something that I've been waiting a long time ago. I wanted to do my very own HobbyPlus CR-18. This is a 1/18 scale vehicle. It has been sold under several different names, so you can get it as an FTX Outback Mini X LC90, or you can get it also as it's more known by the HobbyPlus CR-18. It's a very famous rig. It's very well known. I have seen hundreds of videos comparing it to quite others that we have been seeing, like 1/18s, pandas, katanas, etc. This has been always a winner and an all-time favorite. Has a lot of time in the market. So I went for the CR-18 in the basic model, which I bought it from Banggood. I know it used to be like with a 4-link suspension. Sorry, it's all muddy. You will see why it is all dirty and muddy underneath. As I was saying, it was coming with a 4-link suspension, but then it received an update coming with a Panhard bar that probably you can see over here. This is the Panhard bar. So it came as a modification not only to eliminate one of the upper links up here and making room for a bigger motor. So instead of using the 030 motor by default, now it started to come with a 050 motor. And this model for some reason came with the Panhard bar, but with the 4-link suspension and the 030 motor. So what I did is I removed one of the upper links because it was no longer needed, and I make some space as it comes by default now in the latest updates with the 050 motor that I also had from FTX. And in theory, it goes quite good. With the Panhard bar, they remove the steering, the bumper steer, so it happens that when you are moving the axle, as it's a chassis mounted servo, it happened that the wheels started to twist, to bend, so it's not very good for when you are going on trails on a bumpy section. So as you can see now, it's moving up and down without any hint of bumper steer. So it has been, and as I said, it has been an all-time favorite. It has a lot of fans, and I know people that has been buying 2, 3, or 4 of them and make them in very different bodies and setups for builds. I wanted mine to make kind of a all-rounder for everything, so I can use it indoors, I can use it outdoors, I can go for trails, etc. I really like this body because I'm personally a massive fan of the Toyota Land Cruiser 80 series. So I went for the Lexan body. I got 2 Lexan bodies, transparent ones. I painted this in kind of the turquoise OEM color of the car. I also used the, as you can see, the hard plastic headlights and lenses and grille from the Katana, which is having exactly the same size and space for the Lexan body, so you can have all the details and good scale stuff. Also the rack up here, some branding, spare tire, also the rear light buckets as well, and you can use it and it perfectly fits with all that details on the way lighter Lexan body. So apart from that, I did also this other one that is still using the OEM light because I'm waiting for another set of light buckets and grill from the Katana to use here. And I kind of wanted to make, as I said, an all-rounder that I can use because it has a very lightweight Lexan body. I can use it for climbs, I can use it with its long wheelbase for some trail actions, and also because I modified the shocks and I put some oil in there. Now it's damped, So it's not bouncy anymore. It's very balanced. As you can see, let me remove the body. Of course, as you see, I always like putting magnet mounts. So as you can see, I relocated, I drilled new holes for the suspension down here because I wanted to have more flex. You will see that it's a car that has a very decent amount of flex. For the front ones, at the beginning, I think it has sufficient travel and flex from one of the original positions. So I only used the upgrade plastic shocks with some oil inside and an O-ring to retain some of the grease inside. And it was going really, really well. I fitted this Mewi small servo, which is also very good. I'm really good fan of this. I don't know the brand before, but it's a 3 kilo or more than 3 kilo torque small servo. It goes quicker and has way more torque than the famous Emax. The only downside is that it's a little bit, a couple of millimeters longer and wider than the Emax, so it cannot fit easily on the axial SCX24. Apart from that, what I did, as you can see, it's also I relocated the battery. Instead of using this rear battery tray that I didn't like, I built my very own battery tray here, in which I can use my very own lipos here. I am using a modified disassembled Frankenstein version of the Hobby Win 1080. I was first using a FuryTech Iguana Pro ESC, but one of the two that I bought came dead, so I am currently receiving one of them. They were very kind to send me another one after showing them a video that it was completely dead. And it was so now, as I was waiting, I decided to put a 1080. I removed all the heatsink can and all the upper part of it just to make it lighter, and it works really, really well. And on the other hand, I have one of my turbo racing receivers to use with one of those tiny radios that I like so much. And that's it pretty much. Of course, I'm using these brass wheels that came as well for the Katana. They were very cheap and they are really, really heavy, so it helps a lot to keep the car planted and to have some really, really decent steep angles. So being said that, I have to say that at the beginning, as I was using a 1080, I could be using 3S LiPo batteries. So I started using 3S LiPos, and at the very beginning of using them, I noticed that I started to click the transmission because those are really, really sticky tires. It has some decent weight on them, and as it was really powerful, at the first time it got stuck in a rock, it chewed all the gears inside the transmission. So fortunately enough, I got new gears for the transmission. It costed me something like €2 for a complete set of gears, not only for the tranny but also for the differentials. It was really, really cheap. So I saw that, as you can see in the images, one of the gears were completely chewed, all the tools were worn out. So I replaced them, I put some grease in that, and I noticed that it started to work really, really well. What happened next is something that I was honestly not expecting, especially from a rig that is that famous. I want to make some footage for this video, and as you can see in those images, as soon as I got again stuck in an obstacle, it also chewed all the gears in the transmission. You can see it here. It sounds really, really painful. On top of that, I was really disappointed because on one rig like this that is supposed to be very good for trails and for all this type of stuff, as you can see, and this is also a very famous issue, not only with the CR-18 but also with the CR-24, with the FTX and with the Element Enduro 24 that use kind of a similar axle set, is that the pumpkins that hold the case of the differential inside is so big that it binds absolutely everywhere. You can see also in these images how it usually gets stuck in a lot of very normal and very regular obstacles just because the pumpkins get stuck and get bind of all that stones and small amounts of sand or whatever. It was kind of a bummer because I was expecting this, of course, not to be as a super fancy performer with a lot of option parts available as on the Axial SCX24. But something really decent, especially after all the work that I put in it, replacing all the gears, putting all the ball bearings absolutely everywhere, putting a very, very top ESC and electronics, super powerful and good servo in it, an oil suspension, all the wiring, absolutely everything was really, really taken care of and with the best parts that you can fit on it so far. And it didn't perform. I couldn't even have it for a decent test because it was binding everywhere with these pumpkins. It got stuck in the belly lots of times. And of course, I broke the transmission without any substantial mayhem, let's say. So I was just running a 2S LiPo with a 050 motor, like the one that is currently being fitted in these new rigs for HobbyPlus and FTX. I was not doing something really special or really stressful for this car, and I broke 2 transmissions. So I know, guys, that the Axial SCX24, it's famous, or some people say that the transmission that comes with the car is not very solid. I have to disagree. I think that this is pretty solid for what I have been testing. I have been testing that with a lot of weight and with a 3S LiPo, very sticky tires, getting stuck on really, really difficult obstacles. And I never had any issue with the transmissions like I did with this super awful or disappointing setup. So I have to say that, yeah, I know this is a really loved and a really classic rig for a lot of people, but I was very unlucky with it. So I think that I'm not definitely a big fan of the HobbyPlus or FTX 1/18 scale vehicles anymore. This is not a good performer, or at least at the level that most of us want to perform, which is like build a purpose truck for a lot of situations and make a lot of things and go outside and blast on the trails. And this is not performing as expected. I have to say that the car had a lot of difficulties to perform or just to cross some sections that I could really, really easily pass with the Axial SCX24. Let's remember that Axial with this long wheelbase Jeep Gladiator actually exceeded the 1/24 scale rig. So as you can see, and we can compare both, they are more or less having the same wheelbase. So it's kind of a very, very similar rig with very similar proportions, to the point that you can almost use the body of the Toyota, of the 1/18 scale Toyota, on the Axial. So it has kind of a very, very similar wheelbase, and probably I will be setting the magnets on the setup for this truck, and I will be using my lovely SCX24 long wheelbase with the body that I really like. But yes, this time things didn't work so well, and it turned out to be very disappointing rig. I know that in most of the tests that I see from YouTube, people used to run them completely stock, and as a car completely stock, it performs really well compared to other cars that also run stock, like, I don't know, the Panda Tetra 18, the Katana, and other 1/18 scale rigs. But I have to say that even stock, this car cannot compare to the Axial SCX24, probably in stock shape as well. let's see. And of course, as you start modifying and building something a bit serious on it, it just can't stand that level of performance. So yes, probably not everything can be roses in this channel, and I have to say that I was a bit of upset. Probably I was having really high expectations on this one, but I have to say that after seeing all the videos about it, and after putting all the effort and all the parts and all the time on it, it was really not performing as desired. But, well, you know guys, it is what it is. Thanks for watching, and if you have any suggestions or if you want to challenge me and say that this is a really awesome rig, that it's really capable and it can stand face to face with a modified XCX24, please leave it in comments. So thanks a lot, thanks for watching, and subscribe.